Sweet. Good morning, Ken. We are live, my friend.
Good morning, brother. How you been?
I've been living the dream, man.
I can dig it. I can dig it.
More crazy stuff going on in this world, though.
Too much crazy stuff going on in this world.
I know, man. Uh, while we're waiting for folks to jump on, my name is Rich Brown. I'm the co-host of the American Warrior Society and the American Warrior Show, America's leading self-defense podcast. And this is round 3 with Ken Shadow Goodman, my good friend up there in New York. Here in just a moment, I'm going to read his bio, but I want to tell you first, check out today's sponsors. We got amazing sponsors like our holster sponsors, Works Holster. That's the holster that I use for my Glock 45. It's if you're looking for a light bearing holster, I cannot recommend what Shan is doing over there. It works highly enough. Also, we have precision holsters. If you're looking for amazing tactical belts, if you're looking for a really fast competition rig, I can't recommend them enough. We also have Mountain Man Medical. Before Ken and I came on today, we were talking about what kind of a nutty world we live in, man. You need to make sure you got your medical covered. Going over there to Mountain Man Medical, they got training for you that's absolutely free. I think it's even, once you complete it, you can even print a certificate. But you can also pick up the co-branded trauma kit that we have over there. Or you can check out the American Warrior Society. Become a member of our self-preservation community and keep you and your family safer. We got Tony on. Will Rhodes is on out there in Missouri. We got John Shriver out there in Yukon, Oklahoma. And I'll go ahead and read Ken's bio real quick. Ken Shadow Goodman, the founder and Chief Combatives Coach of 52 VTK, is a testament to the power of resilience and constant self-improvement. His journey began within the challenging confines of the New York State prison system, where he was a resident for a quarter of a century. In this violent subculture, Ken honed his combative skills and intensively refining them for survival. His self-protection system, a product of years of meticulous development, was born and tested within these walls, proving its effectiveness time and time again. Ken's introduction to the martial arts would occur at the age of 5 and set groundwork for his profound journey. He kickstarted his training with fencing and the prison dirty boxing style known as 52 blocks or Jailhouse Rock. This foundation allowed Ken to complement his fighting style with conventional boxing, Kali, Krav Maga in the later years. Today, Ken Shadow Goodman is the man who turned adversity into resilience, shares his expertise with the world, reinforcing the importance of self-protection and teaching the skills needed to make it a reality. And I always enjoy chatting with you, Ken. This is round 3, brother.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Likewise. Always good to get different perspective.
Yeah, it is. But, having, again, like we talked about in previous shows, having worked in a prison, I understand. I've dipped my toe into that subculture, man, and I have great appreciation for those that have lived inside the walls of that institution, because I can't imagine what that must be like to be on alert 24/7, man.
Yeah, it's never a good thing, man. It's not a good way to live. Not a good way to live at all.
No. But there's a lot of lessons I think that you can share with us, man, and keep everybody safer having walked that walk.
Well, honestly, that's like the main thing with what I teach. I tell people so a good brother, I'm not gonna say his name, but hopefully you'll get to meet him in a couple days. Right, he and I are going to work on a book called The Wolf and the Sheepdog. Right, because I come from the perspective of the wolf, and he's law enforcement. He comes from the perspective of the sheepdog, right? And the commonalities between the two, right? But there are a lot of the things that people learn, or they don't learn. They think they learn, right? But the best way to learn how to combat the wolf is from the wolf, right? So you get to, awareness is a big part of what I teach. Oh, a lot of people overlook soft skills, and they don't realize that the soft skills are actually the things that can save you.
Unpack some of that, Ken, if you would, please. Tell people what you mean by tell the audience what you mean by soft skills. Break that down for me, please.
So, for example, awareness is a big thing, right? Like I break awareness into 3 parts, as I told you once before. And the three parts there, 3/3 of a whole. There's awareness of ourselves in relation to the people around us, awareness of ourselves in relation to the objects around us, and awareness of the people and objects around us in relation to each other. Just being aware of your surroundings, right, puts you in a better position to ward off situations. You can avoid a situation altogether, right? Proximity breeds opportunity. So the closer somebody is to me, the more likely they are, or the greater the threat they can possibly pose to me, right? If I look at the way a person is standing, I observe how they're standing, I observe the body language, observe whatever they may be doing, it may give me a heads up as I may be, I need not go that way, right? Or maybe because a lot of times a little eye contact would diffuse the situation, right? Predators don't want to be seen. They want to attack by ambush. So a lot of times if you acknowledge that they're there, you let them know that you see them, they'll pick somebody else, right? But it's also in how you let them know, right? It's the meek head down doing this, and it's like, all right, cool, yeah. Or it's the meek, or the more confident. You look them in the eye, how you doing, bro? You everything good? Right? Boom, and it's like, all right, yeah, I don't think I want to go up that tree right there. And then go somewhere else, right? So it's things like that. Then how I break engagements to 6 parts and all, these types of things. I have what I call the 4 P's of preparedness, right? Like all of these little things that help set the ground so that maybe you don't have to engage physically. And then if you do have to engage physically, you set the battlefield to your advantage, right? So,
as we've talked before, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but people are going to find you and I, Ken, when they find us, right? So if this is the first time you've heard me chatting with Ken, we're going to mulch over a little bit of the same ground, but I think it's important. There's a joke I'll share with you, man, real quick that just kind of illustrates what I'm getting at here. So the church elders hire this new preacher. So the new preacher comes in and he preaches the most amazing sermon anybody's ever heard, and they're like, "Damn, we hired the right guy." And the elders are patting themselves on the back. Man, we got the right guy. So next Sunday, he comes in and teaches the same sermon word for word. And they're like, that was odd. Not sure what that was about, but okay. Third week, he gets up there, same sermon word for word. So now the elders are like, we got to do something. We got to pull this guy aside. Hey, preacher, can I talk to you after church? Yeah. And they're like, hey, we got a problem, man. He's like, what's the problem? Like, I don't know if you realize this, but you've given the same sermon 3 times in a row. And he says, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And I'm going to keep telling the same damn thing until you guys listen to what I'm saying and start acting on it, So I think that's the same thing I'm getting at here. The soft skills, man, our community, the self-defense community, you and I find ourselves in, the gun community, whatever, we pay lip service, I think, to these soft skills. But to your point, Ken, this is the stuff that gets you deselected, and therefore you won't be victimized, right?
Fact. That's an absolute fact.
And I like the fact too that it's not just about the other people in your environment, it's the other things inside your environment and the relationship to each other. And I think that's an often overlooked thing too. If I'm walking through a Walmart parking lot, are there buggies in proximity to me, cars in proximity to me? What are inside those cars? Because cars ferry people. So it's not enough to just look at the shiny object, but look through that glass and see who's in there. There could be predators looking. I love that you say that, because a lot of trainers don't do that.
Like I say, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who's been the predator, right? So I understand how the mind works, what the thought process is, right? The strategy and tactics to get employed, right? And the whole thing behind the target selection. So I can offer this to people, like, this is what's being looked for, right? This is what you don't want to project into the world, right? And then these are the things you should be looking for in order to make yourself a less likely target, right? Nobody wants to be a victim. And but it's somebody, I can't remember, I came across this thing, I'm not sure where I saw it, but it was like, you're your own first responder.
Yeah, we talked about that here. Yeah.
That is the absolute truth right there, right? Like, people don't understand it. The police, the uniform is a deterrent, hopefully, right? Mm-hmm. But police usually get there after the crime has been committed, right?
Mhm.
And if they don't catch the individual after crime has been committed, then the detective is there, comes in to solve the case. He does the investigation and stuff like that, and hopefully he can solve it. But in the moment, the only person responsible for you and whoever is with you is you, right? So you have to be your own first responder. You can't. People have kind of like outsourced their protection to government agencies and things of that nature. And those things have a place, but we have to kind of get back to a space where we understand that we are responsible for ourselves as well, right? Because again, in the moment, so we go back to soft skills, right? I have what I call the 4 cardinal assumptions that I teach in my system, right? So assumption number 1: always assume that there's a weapon involved, right?
Mm.
The weapon is intended to be felt, not seen. Just because you haven't seen a weapon doesn't mean the person doesn't have it. It just means you haven't felt it yet, right? Assumption number 2: always assume that they're bigger, faster, stronger, and more skilled than you are, right? See, so that way we go into the situation with that assumption, we won't take them lightly and play games. We understand we need to end this engagement quickly, right? We don't want a bigger, stronger, faster, and more skilled person with a potential weapon to have a lot of time to decide what to do with us, right? The next assumption is that they always have help, right? Friends, family, and sympathizers. Friends and family are self-explanatory, right? Usually when the guy's committing a crime, they work in groups. There'll be somebody keeping a lookout, or somebody's going to create the distraction. The other person's going to do the actual work, right? Boom. And then the last is that nobody's coming to help you. And that's the one that really has to do with what we're talking about now. When you understand that nobody is coming to help you, you go into a situation with that assumption in place. You're like, okay, I have to save me because nobody else is coming to help me. If somebody does come in the midst of this thing going on and offer some assistance, that's a beautiful thing. But we want to start from the position of nobody's coming to help me. I need to end this thing quick because each one of these stack on top of each other. I got a bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled person with a weapon who has help, and I'm by myself. I need to end this engagement as quickly as possible before his help gets there, before he brings the weapon out of his pocket, and before he has an opportunity to bring his skills, strength, and abilities into play, right? So the 4 cardinal assumptions are there to create a sense of urgency in the practitioner. It's like what you, in the beginning, you were saying about living in the environment of the prison system and always having to be on guard, right?
Switched on. Yep.
Right. So the thing was trying to find the way to switch people on out here, right? So in there, violent engagements always have a sense of urgency attached to them because every engagement could be a life and death situation. Guys understand that. A lot of times people out here walk around with the illusion that because I don't want to go to jail, this guy doesn't want to go to jail either. People try to rationalize you can't rationalize with somebody who comes at you with ill intent, right? It's like they say about quoting poetry to a swordsman. It just doesn't work, right? So people feel as if I'm trying to avoid going to prison. Maybe I could make him understand that if he does this, he's going to go to prison. This guy's probably already been to prison. So he doesn't care about going back to prison or whatever case. What he cares about is taking what you have. So I needed to create a sense of urgency in people, how to switch them on. So the 4 cardinal assumptions, each one of these have to do with you working from behind the 8 ball. And then when you stack all 4 of them on top of each other, you should be in a mindset like, I need to end this quickly, right? Don't play with your food. I tell people that. Predators don't play with their food. You shouldn't play with your food either, right? Boom. Get the situation over with.
I love it, man. It's like, okay, you want to make assumptions because we all do it. Then assume these things. Assume them.
Right.
And I like how you're saying, that they're layered. It's not one standalone. It's like these things layer upon each other. I found a great video, man. While you're talking, Ken, I was trying to find it because I guess this woman's an actress, and she starts walking down like this treadmill, and the way she's walking, it was some of the things that you were talking about. Head down, arms aren't even swinging in conjunction with her body. She's fidgeting. And then over a course of a few steps, you see her slowly get more confident in her carriage. And it's a great example of kind of what you're talking about, deselecting. But yeah, I love those assumptions, man. I hope people are listening to you, Ken.
I hope so too.
Tony says, anyone going to address the elephant in the room? And I guess the elephant in the room would be yesterday that the 45th president of the United States was convicted of. I mean, if you look at what the crime really is, man, it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, we're talking about it's not like it's illegal to pay somebody to shut up. It's not illegal. I mean, I've talked to our attorney. We've had employees before that were leaving and they knew proprietary knowledge of our system and we didn't want them knowing it. We didn't want them spreading it. So we like, hey, man, I'll give you a $5,000 severance. You sign this piece of paper. You're going to keep your mouth shut about our system. And this is in the construction industry, not in combative system. And so that's not illegal. People have been doing that forever. But the ledger entry, I guess, was not where it's supposed to be. And for that, he gets convicted as a felon. What's going on here, man?
Man, you know what's going on. That nobody wants Trump back in office, right? Which is, it's weird to me, right? So, like the last time we spoke, I was talking about how I like the guy, right? I like because he says what he's thinking. You don't have to try to discern what he means based on what his aides are saying or whatever the case. You can ask him a direct question. He's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind, right? And I don't know if some people are afraid of that or that bothers people in some kind of way or whatever the case, right? But and you know, I try not to get overly political, but if the guy that's in office right now hasn't told the truth about anything since he's been in office, and he never tells you what he's thinking, right? He always says one thing and does something entirely different. But if, you know, that makes people comfortable. So maybe you ever heard of a book called The Sword of Truth?
No, huh?
By Terry, I think it's by Terry Goodkind. It's a series, right? But they have this thing in there called the Wizard's Rules. And the Wizard's first rule is that people are stupid. They can be made to believe that a lie is the truth either because they're afraid of the truth or in some way they can benefit from the lie, right? Or something to that effect. I'm probably misquoting that, but I find that to be real, right? People will usually accept a lie, right? So, because I guess, you know, we get so accustomed to being lied to that we're comfortable with the lie, right? We'd rather have a comfortable lie than an uncomfortable truth, right? So, you know, this guy that's in office now likes to lie, and people are good with that for whatever reason. And Trump doesn't particularly lie, or if he does, you know, I have a call. Like I said, he normally says what he's thinking, and that's uncomfortable for some people. So it's like, all right, we don't need this dude in office. So, you know, that's my take on that.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think he's, you know, in some ways a typical New Yorker. No offense to you, Ken, but you know, they're bold, they're brash. You know, they don't put a lot of pleasantries on what they're saying. They just say it, and I love that. I find it refreshing, for lack of a better word, that he does that, because I don't want a politician like Joe Biden, even though he said some crazy stuff back in the day. Man, you can watch some clips of this cat, and he's just a straight up liar. He's, you know, and plagiarizer, and of how people are voting for this guy. It has to just be a vote against Trump, I would imagine, at this point. Like, you can't tell me this man isn't cognitively impaired. Can't tell me that.
See, I like you did. That was very politically correct the way you did that.
I mean, I don't know. Tony says, you know, if they can do that to him, they can do that to anybody, you know, and that's the case. And as far as like, can he run now that he's a convicted felon? Constitution seems to indicate that he can. It doesn't say you can't be a felon.
I hope he does, man. I really do, because I mean, again, before he got into office, all of the doom and gloom sayers had a lot to say about he was going to drag us in the war, and he was going to do this, and he was going to, suspend the Constitution or do away with the Constitution altogether, and all this stuff. None of that happened when he was in office, right?
That's right.
Now he's not in office. We find that free speech is being infringed upon. We find ourselves being dragged into wars and all kinds of stuff. Everything they said Trump was going to do, Biden is doing, right? Yep. So like, and I tell people all the time, I'm an American before anything, right? I'm for the America first, but let's really make it America first, right? Then we could work out our own issues in America, and then we find out what's going on with everybody else. Like, yo, I told you last time, the way vets get treated in this country is weird as hell to me, right? But we got money for everybody else. That's crazy. We got homeless vets in the street, right? But we don't have money for that. But we got money for everything else.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it, man? You know, we're giving so much money to the Ukraine and stuff like that, and that thing could spin out of control. We did my co-host and I, Seeklander, we did a show on nuclear war Wednesday, and we've never been as close to nuclear war than we are right now. And most Americans have zero idea. The doomsday clock is set at 90 seconds to midnight, midnight being all out nuclear war. It's never been that close in 77 years. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Putin almost dropped one 2 years ago when the Ukrainians were breaking through the lines and they were about to roll back what's going on in Crimea. All the gains that they had made in 2014 was fixing to be wiped out. And so he had one of his top generals call all the NATO commanders like, hey, we're gonna pop a tactical nuke on these guys. We're not going to lose this territory. You better get them back. And now we're given depleted uranium rounds to be used on Russian citizens. We're giving them F-16 fighter jets. I just see this going nowhere good. And then I look at the current sitting president and the vice president, and this ain't even the B team, man. I wouldn't let them run my company, let alone the United States of America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, they're the bad news bears.
That's a good way of looking at it. I mean, that's the way I thought of it the other day, Ken. I'm like, would I hire these people to manage a Taco Bell franchise that I had if I had one? Hell no. And yet you're going to let them run the country?
Yeah, that's crazy. Not just run the country, maybe run the country for a second term.
No.
That's scary.
Yeah. Guile says, what's next for Trump? Guile is out there in the Philippines. Brother, I don't know, man. I don't know I don't know what's going to happen to him. And my brother says the question is, can he vote for himself? He may not be able to vote as a convicted felon. Now, that may be true.
That's because I think there was some stuff to have. I know I got my voting rights back.
Oh, you did? Good. Right?
So as far as I'm aware, and I'm not sure if this is just a New York State thing, but they it might have been under George Bush Jr., like right before he left out of office, or maybe under Obama, but somebody passed some legislation that was supposed to have given felons their right to vote back, right? So I was surprised when I got mine back. So
how did they notify you of that, Ken? Did you get something in the mail? I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, I went into report one day for parole, and my parole officer was like, you want to vote? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, sign these papers. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah. So.
Pat Cahill is on up there in northern Wisconsin. Guile says, I doubt Trump can still run for president. There's nothing. All the Constitution requires, as I understand it, is you got to be 35 or older and a natural born U.S. citizen. You can't be a naturalized citizen. You got to actually be born in this country. I think that's about it. Bruce is on, says late, but good morning. Oh, he is coin number 481. Will Parker says, now the establishment and Democrats will work even harder to keep President Trump out of office to avoid themselves being indicted, probably convicted and severely punished. And that's the thing, man. They let the genie out of the bottle, Ken. You went after him. Yeah. What do you think the next guy's going to do, right?
Yeah. Well, like you said, that's that New York attitude. Like, all right, you got me, right? Put him in a position to get you back. You're probably going to get got.
That's right.
They didn't think about that.
I think that is it a tactical victory on some level that they got him, they convicted him on 34 counts. Tactical victory. It could be a strategic loss, though. And also, I was reading, Ken, maybe you and I have talked about this before, how with today's mainstream media, everybody's got bias and they push their narrative and they push their bias, right? So I kind of, when it happened, I read Fox, I read CNN, and then I went and read Al Jazeera's and Reuters and BBC. And I think the BBC over there in the UK had a really good take on it, because they're like, we're searching for a historical precedent to kind of look at what could happen in the future relative to this indictment, and said there is no historical precedent for a former president to be convicted and potentially jailed. We don't know what's going to happen. I said, well, that's fair enough. You're telling the truth. We don't know what's going to happen.
Let me ask this, like, because you know that felonies have, I don't have to tell you that, you're a cop, felonies have classes, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I know that some of the more severe classes, you know, prohibit you from doing certain things, but if this was just a money thing, it really shouldn't even be a serious charge, right?
Boom.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like it was a violent, like, I know that in New York, nonviolent felons they get back a lot of their rights before, you know, as far as like right to bear arms and all that stuff like that. So if you can own a gun with a felony, certain types of felonies, right? I would imagine, I don't see why paying somebody some money would stop him from running for president again.
I don't get it either. Now, going back to my example where our attorney said, hey, see if they'll take $5,000 or $3,000 or whatever he said, offer this cat so that he won't go out and start his own waterproofing company. You know what I'm saying? Using our branded system. And I think he took the money. I can't remember. It's been 7 or 8 years ago. But again, if I would have went in and made a ledger entry and then trying to write that payment off via the IRS, maybe that would have been illegal. I don't know. But to me, that's like so minute, man. That's it's an accounting error. You know what I'm saying? And now that is a felony. It's weaponization of the law, man. And I think that most Americans can see through that.
You know, people are going to see based on the glasses they want to see through, right?
Yep.
So people who are rooting for him are going to see it the way that you just laid out. Other people are going to see, oh no, he's a felon, and you know, this is a bad thing. My thing is this. Again, the current sitting president, even if you didn't want to vote for Trump, don't vote for that guy, right? Because like, yo, nothing good has come out of him being in the Oval Office, man. Nothing.
No, nothing. No, and there was a Democratic strategist. He was like, it pains me to say it, but the Republicans were right on the immigration issue. And they were right to start trying to attack it hard, you know, when they did 6, 8, 9 years ago. And because look at the bomb that's went off down there. Let me ask you this. Now, did you grow up in Brooklyn?
I did indeed.
Okay. What do you make, if anything? And I know we're far afield of self-defense, so maybe we'll circle back to that in a second, Ken. But as someone who grew up there in the city, what do you make of the turnout there in the Bronx to see President Trump?
Oh, well, first, you got to keep in mind, like, he's a New Yorker, right? So some people are going to look at it as, yo, this is one of our own, right? And then what's happening to him right now is what happens to black and brown people all the time. That's why you find people saying like, oh, he's one of us now. Right?
Yeah.
See? So, yeah, there was a thing, and you might be talking about the same thing, where a reporter was asking people in the Bronx, like, you know, what do you think about Trump? A lot of them was like, yeah, I'll vote for him. I'll vote for him right now. Because, again, New Yorkers understand New Yorkers. And even when we don't particularly care for each other, right, we respect the fact that we say what we're thinking, right? Boom. Yo, most New Yorkers don't enjoy being lied to, right? I don't think most people enjoy being lied to, except for the people who are comfortable, who would prefer the comfortable lie over a hard truth. Right. So, yeah, man, I think as far as New York, I can't see, you know, Biden beating Trump in New York. That would be amazing to me. Right. New Yorkers love the guy, or at least if they don't love him, they like him more than they do Joe Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think your point is well taken. And this is why I say it's a tactical victory. Yeah, we got him 34 counts. It's a strategic loss because I think, to your point, black and brown Americans that have felt the persecution, whether that's perception is real or not, it doesn't matter. That's their perception. And now they're like, oh, look, they targeted this guy. Okay. And this speaks to, I think, what Ted Leonard is saying. He says, the self-defense lesson for me is that the district attorney and the system can destroy me for defending my life. And we saw that with the Apple River stabbing. Did you see that at all, Ken?
No, I didn't.
Wisconsin recently. I did a show on it with attorney Andrew Branca, who covered the case very closely. Guy about my age, I think it's 54, 55. He's on the river, and his buddy loses his iPhone. So he's out there, he's got a mask looking through the water, trying to find his buddy's phone. And this group of college kids, literally like more than a dozen of them, come down and start making fun of the guy. They surround him, push him into the water, etc. He has a knife in his pocket, and he stabs a couple of people. And that dude got convicted of murder. And it's one of those. It's like looks to me, Ken, to be a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense. And this is a guy who's a mechanical engineer, never been in trouble a day in his life. He immigrated from like Slovakia or somewhere when he was a kid. Highly educated, never even had a speeding ticket. And he's surrounded. He's had quadruple bypass. They're pushing him underwater. Like, what did you want him to do? Issue a couple of harsh words? That nothing was going to stop that. You know what I'm saying?
So I can tell you from personal experience, right? Living here in Binghamton, there was in 2017, there was an incident, right? I came home. Long thing. So these dudes attempted to ambush me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys had a knife. He ended up losing his knife and finding it inside his rib cage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were people out there, right? They arrested me. And I'm telling them, the people are telling them as they arrested me, yo, you guys are arresting the wrong guy, right? Well, because it was two of these guys. And it was just me, right? All right. I had spent 10 months fighting that case in jail, had to go to trial and everything, right? The district attorney told me flat out, I didn't have the right to protect myself.
What?
Right? Yeah, I didn't have the right to protect myself, right? So there was body cam. There was a guy who recorded the whole incident on his cell phone, pretty much from start to finish. To see these guys ambush me. The police never went to get the video. There were over 40 people standing outside who saw what had transpired. They never interviewed any of these people. I had to go through all of that. And then when I won the trial, the district attorney was still pissed, and I was still on parole at the time, so they made parole violate me for that. So I say that to say that district attorneys, and a lot of people need to understand this, man. Once you commit a crime, unless you're in, the district attorney doesn't care. Only thing he wants is a conviction, right? Most district attorneys have political aspirations of some type, and they just want the conviction. That's it. They don't care about what you were doing before you came across their desk, right? They want the conviction. You just represent another notch in their belt that they can show. So, when they want to go for the job of being the actual district attorney, or when they want to go from trying to be a mayor or becoming a judge, look at my conviction rate. This is what I did. I was hard on crime, right? So yeah, man, it's a dirty game.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2017.
2017. Man, oh man! And how much money did you have to spend to get out of that?
Too much. I lost a truck. My wife at the time, she had to relocate to a different apartment, all kind of crazy stuff, man. And that was the thing, right? So even with all of this, even with all these people telling, and the guys were still threatening my wife and kids. Right? And the officers knew this, but they was like, yeah, well, nothing happened. So boom, boom. Their focus was on me. They had somebody in jail. I became the focus, right? So, yeah, man, it's a dirty game. It's a dirty game.
Yeah, and I think, I hope people hear what you're saying, because I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to be the good guy. Why are they putting handcuffs on me? I didn't do anything wrong. Like, hey, man, even if you did nothing wrong, until it gets sorted out. And again, it's what Tony says here is Branca describes it not as a system, but as a meat grinder. And if you get in that grinder, man, and having been an investigator, I'm going to tell you, it's not like when I say, hey, I've got to go to Puerto Rico to interview witnesses, or I got to fly someone in from Japan who saw this X number of years ago. It's like, okay, great. Spend the money. I mean, I have limitless resources when I was an investigator in the Marine Corps. Limitless. I mean, the full faith and credit of the United States government is coming down on you hard. And there's nothing we won't do to get a conviction. I'm just telling you, because I want that W next to my name. I want that win. So, and Tony says, the process is the punishment. I mean, here, like you said, Ken, we got a guy, he's on parole. There's a knife involved. This is our guy. He stabbed somebody else. It doesn't matter that it was in self-defense. If we can make this look like something bad, we're going to make it look like something bad.
Yeah. But that's, like I said, that just personal experience. The thing is, like I said, it wasn't even my knife.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that's
But did the guy survive?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did.
Now, did you get acquitted, or what was the outcome of that?
Justifiable use of lethal force.
Okay.
Right. There's already precedent on the books. So the guys escalated the level of violence. Right. The guy had blatantly on, like I said, on video or whatever, said, yeah, I'm going to kill you, going to die today, and all of this and that other stuff. Right. So he made the threat. So the way it works in New York State, it's a two-prong defense. The first prong of that defense is you have to have the reasonable belief that your life is in danger. The second prong is that another reasonable person in your position would have had to believe the same. I have two individuals, one my size and one a lot bigger than me, telling me that they're going to kill me, right? They both attacked me. They're telling me they're going to kill me. One of these guys has a weapon. I don't think there was a reasonable person in the world who would have thought that my life wasn't in danger at that time. Mm-hmm. They just chose the wrong dude that day.
Yes, they did. Yeah, I hate that story, man. That well, obviously that you got attacked, number one, but that the system aligned itself against you in that regard, because irrespective of what crimes you may have committed 30, 40, 50 years ago, it just, that's not relevant to what's going on right now. You know what I mean? It's like, let's look at this thing right here. That's a shame, man. So let's since you brought that up, what was the role of your system in that fight? Can you talk to a little bit about 52 VTK or anything, how that helped you win that particular fight you found yourself in that day?
So the first thing is again, so the system was formed in the prison system. So my mind is already geared toward, I'm strategizing, right? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the environment, what I said earlier about the awareness of people in relation to ourselves, right? Boom. So I'm looking at who's standing where, what the body language is, right? Trying to read intent. And I think that was a big thing. And then after that is just training, because when the guy, he threw the punch first, I'm sure you've encountered this in your years, right? That a lot of people who aren't familiar with or accustomed to using a knife, aren't trained with a knife, if they have a little bit of boxing, they'll almost use the knife like they're boxing.
Absolutely.
Right? So he threw the punch first and then tried to stab with the knife, right? And I was able to read it. So, and again, this comes from years of experience and training. So I read the punch. I passed the punch, like letting the punch ride off here, and intercepted the knife and managed to take it away from him, right? And this is, again, these are things that I know work. I've had to do that before, right? And so the huge thing with VTK and how it helped in that situation right there is that I teach what I know works because it worked over the course of 25 years in a bad situation, right? Boom. And it was
prison is a blade culture. Correct.
Absolutely a blade culture, right? Or weapon-based culture, because the reality is, you have razors that have blades on them, but a lot of the shanks that guys use tend to be more stabby type than slashing type, right? But it's a weapon-based culture. And if you can't deal with weapons, because that is the perfect example of nobody's coming to help you, right? Because a lot of times when it's going down, the correction, like I'll give you a perfect example. Comstock, I want to say Sunday. It's either Sunday or Saturday, but I'm 90% sure Sunday. It's been a while. So they do GI. You can GI your cell, right? And what happens is the officer comes down, he takes the list, he pops all the cells, and then he leaves. So all the cells are open and the tear is locked at both ends, right? So everybody out It's like you. See, so anything can happen at that point, and there are no officers there. He's gone somewhere with the other officers, drinking coffee and talking, shooting the shit or whatever the case. I'm sorry, I cursed this.
That's okay, Ken. That's all right, brother. Yeah, you're good. You're good, man.
But so you have to be responsible for you, right? And you're in a closed environment. You don't have a lot of room to move. So yeah, you learn to pay attention. You learn how to function in tight spaces, and you learn how to mitigate certain types of threat, right? Because the officer's not coming to help you. And 9 times out of 10, nobody on that tier is going to help you, right? So you have to be responsible for you, right? And again, this is why I try to drive that point home to people. You have to be responsible for you, right? And this is how you become responsible for you. I think I might have told you this before. I look at the whole personal protection, let's call it paradigm, as 3-tiered, right? There are 3 layers of it. The first layer is the self-defense, and the self-defense is based entirely on soft skills, right? I like to use the analogy of a castle with a wall, right? Your self-defense is the wall. The wall is supposed to keep the enemy out, right? So paying attention to your surroundings, being able to read body language, all of these things here, that's your wall, right? You have your space, and nobody should get past this space who you don't want inside that space, right? That comes through you observing, putting that wall up. However, if the wall gets breached, right, and the wall is also there to give the troops on the other side of the wall, your troops, an opportunity to prepare just in case the wall does get breached, right? So when we're using our awareness to observe the world around us, based on our observation, we can prepare. All right, this person is standing there. His left side is closest to me. The most logical attack would be for him to do something like this. Boom. I'm going to set myself like this to make a little distance, so that way he has to cover more space, gives me an opportunity, widens the response gap, right? Boom. So now if they do get past the wall, I have time to do what needs to be done. Now this is the hard skills come into play, right? See, that's the second layer. Now the hard skills. So now you have to work on your hard skills, and they have to be based in reality, right? None of the death touch thing or whatever the case, or you're gonna scream at him and knock him out or some nonsense like that, right? Boom. No, it has to be based in reality, and it has to be actionable, right? And the simplest techniques are the best in my book. I like to draw the analogy of a gun. The best firearms are the ones with the fewest moving parts. That way, if you have to field strip it or anything, you don't have to worry about losing a bunch of little pieces, right? Boom. If it jams, you can strip it, put it back together, boom, or whatever. The last piece of that is if you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's and somehow you still find yourself bound in somebody's trunk or in the van, then we have the escape part, the counter custody and the abduction part, right? Boom. Understanding if you got taken here, you don't want to make it to the secondary location, right? You want to try to get out of here now, because if you make it to the secondary, when they first snatch you, the initial location that it takes place is going to be a rush job.
Yep.
Right? Boom. If they get you from there to the next location, now they can make sure the bonds are tight, the gag is in place, or that secondary location might be the final location, and you may never see anybody again. So you want to try to stop it where it's happening, or if you happen to be in the trunk or whatever, know how to get out of the zip ties, know how to get out of the handcuffs, how to get out of the duct tape, what you need to do, things that you can carry on your person to help facilitate that, and do what needs doing. So that's my take on the whole personal protection thing, right? It's 3 layers. All 3 layers are important, equally important, right? Or even if we didn't say equally important, maybe the most important is the wall, right? So you never have to actually engage in the physical side of it, right? Because I don't want to be hitting people. I like my hands. I don't want to break my hand on something. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to be fighting the courts again, trying to convince them that I was the good guy in the situation. So if I can avoid it altogether, that is the absolute best outcome, right?
No, that's absolutely right. If you're all the way into the counter custody part of the three tiers, you know, you're fighting an uphill fight, man. Because
Yeah.
where are they taking you? I'll tell you where they're taking you. They're taking you to the crime scene. That's where you're going, whether you know it or not. So yeah, and the whole part about keeping people, creating and maintaining a layer around you that somebody can't breach is obviously difficult in a street setting because people are walking by me and stuff. But I think if I'm just aware, like, okay, somebody is breaching my proximity, they're moving in, okay, they're moving past, okay, cool. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be like, hey, you stay back, but it's an awareness, like, okay, I'm watching how they're blading their body, I'm watching what they're doing. If I can put a telephone pole between me and them just by maneuvering my body or a push cart or whatever, that's a better thing to do. So yeah, man, you got to be aware of your surroundings, because I'm with you, brother. If we go to hard skills, there's going to be a police report. Something's going to get adjudicated, and I don't want no part of that, man.
So just to add a little bit to that, if you think, again, with the analogy with the castle, right? Mm-hmm. You look at medieval times, the castles were also places of commerce. People were going in and out. There was the road in and out, and like the bazaar was inside the castle walls. The marketplace was inside the castle. So it's not that people are not going to pass through the wall, right? But there were usually guards at the gates of the wall to check people coming in. So this is, again, that awareness, right? As we're walking and somebody's coming close, we're aware this person's coming close. Look at their hands.
Amen.
Right? Do they have anything in their hands? So a couple months back, I was out at Kirk's Martial Arts and Krav Maga teaching a class, right? And one of the things I covered was ambush tactics that criminals use, right? Mm-hmm. And I showed Ernie Kirk a thing. I'm walking and I bumped into him, and I'm like, yo, excuse me. And then the next thing you knew, he had a knife up against his kidneys, right? So I'm like, see, it's that easy, right? I want to see what's coming. Why is this guy's hiding his hand? Maybe I want to move over just a little bit. Little bits of space count.
Amen.
Right? You can maximize. So, like, we have a footwork pattern in 52 VTK that I show people. That shows you how to maximize tight spaces with footwork, right? You can accomplish a whole lot with a little bit of space if you understand the proper way to maximize that space. So if I see somebody walking towards me and for whatever reason their hands aren't readily visible, I can't see what's in their hand, I create a little bit of distance, because now that increases the distance they have to cover to get to me, which gives me more opportunity to respond to what they may attempt to do. Right? Again, like I said, you always want to set the battlefield to your advantage.
No, 100%, man. I was going to say, and maybe we talked about this before, but I have a belief that if someone doesn't respect your space, they don't respect you. When they're coming into your space, like you said, they're coming into and giving you a little bump or whatever, dude, that they don't respect you, man. Now, are they going to do something with that and predate you and take your stuff, or attack you? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you right now, if they're coming in and doing something like that, they don't respect you.
So I think that more depends on the circumstance, right? Because, for example, on the subway in New York City, you're going to get bumped, right? It's especially during rush hour. It's how it's done, right? See, if it's an accidental, excuse me, right? Yeah.
It's
or
context.
You can read when it's done with malicious intent, right? The person is trying to. We spoke about this last time where somebody had asked a question when we were getting new correction officers, how we would feel them out or whatever the case, right? See, so, you enter somebody's personal space with a little extra aggression to see how they respond to that aggression, right? Or how they react to that aggression. Because I think we spoke about that before too, the difference between reaction and response, right? I want to see how they react to me being a little extra aggressive with them, right? If they wilt, right? Or if they meet the aggression with aggression, right? See? So if a guy, growing up in Brooklyn, this used to be a thing all the time when we were kids, feeling each other out and stuff like that, guy bump into you to see what you're going to do, right? And if you like, oh, don't worry about it or whatever the case. I was like, oh, this dude's soft, man. We're gonna take your sneakers, right? But if you do bump jumps like, yo, what up, and then you boss up back on him, you know, there might be a fist fight or whatever the case, but you got that dude's respect now, right? So, you know, like I said, that was kid stuff. But one thing I've learned is that a lot of the things, particularly where I grew up at, right, a lot of the stuff that we did as kids were lessons that we were being taught for later on in life. Right. And I think that's true with most people in most places. The stuff we go through things as children, and then later on in life, like, yo, I remember that this was similar to a time when this happened. Or like the movie Bodyguard, right, with Kevin Costner and I can't think of her name right now.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah, Whitney Houston, right? And he was like that his father was saying how he never beat him. So when he went to play football, he was afraid to get hit, right? Boom. See? So he went out and started training martial arts, whatever the case, because he wanted to not be afraid to get hit, right? So, you know, we get into fist fights and stuff as children with our friends. And then as adults, we learn how to deal with situations that, you know, may not be favorable to us, or if we're confronted with violence. Like I tell people a lot of the times, the scariest thing about the knife for a lot of people is what they saw on TV, right? Because they never been stabbed before, right? Or they never been punched before, but they watch movies and they see somebody get punched and then the jaw go this way or the blood comes flying out their mouth. So they immediately think, oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me, right? Boom. But when you've been punched before, it's like, all right, cool, I can survive getting punched, so that ain't no big deal, right?
Yeah. That's me and some of my police buddies have talk about that often. Like, man, for a brand new police officer, now to think about this, to be a police officer, you've got to live a pretty clean life. You know, you can't have arrests and convictions on you. You know, you've got to have good financial statements. You know, you lived a pretty good life, which means you probably haven't been around criminals, right? So if you got punched in the face as a brand new cop, it's a big deal. But for the bad guy in this context, it ain't his first rodeo, man. You don't think for a second that you're going to bow up on him as a cop or use a little bit of force on this guy and you're going to change his day, man. This is, you're not. It's so, and one other thing you mentioned, context is king. So if I'm having been in Japan, you know, if I'm running a subway over there, people behave a certain way. If I'm running a subway in DC, which I have as well, they behave a certain way. And so on and so on. Now down in the South, we bump into each other. That's a big no. We got a culture of honor. It just don't go well. Now, when you get in a subway in the Bronx, it's going to be different, and you're going to have to appreciate that you're in a new environment, and that people are going to be in closer proximity to you than you are maybe a bit comfortable with. But you have to know the difference between a bump and you're getting. I don't know, what would you call it, Ken? Am I making sense? The context of that interaction.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like between an innocent bump and one that's done with intent.
Yes.
Somebody bumped into you because the train is swaying like this and they have to bump you. That's, you know, but if that's a person, same train, but now instead of just a little tap with the bump, they like bumping into you like this. Yeah, you meant to do that. Right?
100%. But what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Right. I mean, whether that's implied or said aloud. And I'll tell you, I've ridden trains in like Naples, Italy, the pickpocket capital of the world. So I'm, you know, they're the Italian people, man, they're going to get in real close proximity to you. I mean, they were all over us, you know, and all I could do is I had my bag, I had a sling bag on, and I've got it in front of me like this. And I got my back to the wall, and I got my wife and my friend and his wife. But I mean, they weren't doing it malicious. There was just nowhere to go. And their culture is, this is, you know, they're very family oriented or whatever. I don't know, man, but they seem very comfortable in that. I'm reading everybody's face like, hey, this is just a normal day on a packed train in Italy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. New York, same, man.
Yeah.
Most people aren't looking for trouble, right? No. It's just, New York is a very crowded place. Even walking down the street in New York is, You know, I live in upstate New York now. I like my mom and everybody is still in the city, so I go down to visit. I hate going down there, right? Because so many people and everybody's in such close proximity to each other, right? And trying to navigate through that is, you know.
Let's circle back to the beginning here, Ken. You had cardinal assumptions. So
Right.
let's take those cardinal assumptions, because I love them and I agree with them, and let's put that in context of the train. Can you go over the cardinal assumptions one more time, and let's contextualize this relative to a train in the Bronx?
So the first, are you sure are you talking about the cardinal assumption or the
Yes,
three-part
sir.
awareness?
Yeah, the cardinal assumption.
All right, cool. So the first assumption is always assume that there's a weapon involved, right? The second assumption is they always assume that they're bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled than you are. Next is always assume that they have help. And last, always assume that no one is coming to help you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now if I'm on the train and I'm assuming there's a weapon involved, this is huge.
Yeah.
Watching hands. Right? I want to be anybody who's in my immediate surroundings and then starts to branch out from there, right? Because I want to look at who's closest first and how much of a threat they may pose to me, right? Boom. However, I also understand that there's a tactic where the guy standing next to you may not actually be the threat. He's the distraction, and the other guy might reach around him to go in your pocket or do whatever, or you might feel the knife or the gun from around behind the guy, right? So once I assess these people in my immediate area, now I want to start assessing everybody just past them, right? I want to look at hands. I want to look at eye contact is huge, right? Because if you've been selected as a target, when you make eye contact with people, there'll be a kind of recognition there, right? They know that they chose you, and when they see you looking at them, it's like, oh shit, he's looking at me. So I keep cursing, my bad.
You're absolutely good, Ken. Yeah,
but it's
this is an intense topic. I don't know how we can talk about it without dropping a cuss word or two.
All right, cool. But you know, there's a recognition there, right? You see them, they know you see them, and they didn't want to be seen by you, right? Most people, when you make eye contact with them, it'll be they'll look boom, and if it's no intent there, they'll just look past you, right? They'll acknowledge that you're looking at them and they'll just look past. But when a guy has intent, there'll be the eye contact and a little start, right? Even if it's not, I over exaggerate here, but the eyes might get a little bit wider or tighten up at the corners a little bit, boom, and then it's a quick look away, right? As if he's trying to hide his intent. See, when you see stuff like that, boom, I need to pay a little bit more attention to this person. And then if I identify that person, I'm trying to look for who else, like body language, could be with this dude, right? See, once you identify these people, they're moving. Now, you had said when you was on the train in Italy, how you had your back to the wall or the door, right? Mm-hmm. I get on the train in New York City, I'm almost always trying to have my back to the door, right? Mm-hmm. Because now I got everybody in front of me. I can observe everything right there. Nobody's behind me. When the door is open, I turn to the side a little bit because I want to see who's coming on and also the people going off. Because there was a thing in the city for a while where people were getting off the trains, and as the doors was closing, they was reaching back and cutting people or like snatching. Yeah, that was nasty stuff. That was nasty stuff, man. Right? So I want to see who's getting off the train. And again, I'm looking at hands, right? I haven't encountered anybody as yet who can shoot lasers out of their eyes, right? Yeah. So once I've made all that observation, now I'm more concerned with what are the hands doing, right? Yeah. What can I see on the hands? Is this guy got his hand tucked any particular way? And I'm moving out from that. So I'm looking for the knife or the weapon, right? Because I'm always assuming there's a weapon involved. I already gave the assumption that, or the crowd, that there's somebody in this crowd who's bigger, stronger, faster, and more skilled than I am, and I need to identify that person. And if that person has identified me as a potential target, right, then I'm looking for who may be helped. Because once I pick out likely individuals who may become a problem, right, because we all do that, right? We're in a crowded space. We look. and we identify potential problems. Because in the Art of War, Sun Tzu says something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing here, that when you recognize the issue, when everybody else can recognize the issue, that he speaks about thunder. And he said, when you can hear the sound of thunder when everybody else hears, that isn't an example of keen hearing, or you see the flash of lightning when everybody else sees it. That's not an example of keen eyesight, right? The thing is to be able to read the situation before it becomes a situation, right? So I'm in a space, I identify people, then I'm looking for who might be a threat, right? Boom. And start seeing where these people are standing in relation to myself, right? So I've done all of that. I've identified who might be a possible threat, who may or may not be with this person. Boom. And I want to put myself in a situation that I have the advantage because I know nobody's coming to help me, right? So that's putting my back to the door. And when the door is open, I want to turn sideways. There's usually a rail right here by this seat next to the door. I put my back to that rail. Persons are getting off. I'm looking at their hands to make sure nobody has anything in their hands that they want to surprise me with. And then I go back to doing what I was doing when the doors close again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it, man. I think it might be the Left of Bang guys. I've had them on the show before, Arcadia Cognerati, the combat hunter program, and with them that the military adopted, the Marine Corps specifically adopted. And I want to say they had a thing where you walk into a new environment, new space, new room, whatever. And the first thing you need to be thinking is, does anybody need lethal force right now? Let's get that out of the way. Does anybody need to be shot right now? Now, I know that's, and obviously it's not a conscious thought, but once you repeat that, that's the hardest mental and emotional and physical hurdle to get over, is having to administer lethal force right now. So if that is, nope, everything's cool. This is just a normal subway. All right, cool. Now like you said, now let's look at posture. Let's look at body language. Is there any unnatural concealment of the hands? Why has he not just got his hands in his pocket? Why is he doing this? Or why has he got his hand like that? And then you're reading all that situation, man. And I like the fact that you're emphasizing there's always going to be a weapon involved. Assume that. Assume they're working in packs. Assume somebody's bigger, stronger, faster, So if you think that way too, you're also thinking escape, like you said, with your back to the door. If I need to punch out of this environment, I'm going to roll because I'm assuming they're bigger, stronger, faster. I'm assuming they're going to have a weapon. And therefore, I don't want to be in this place that's about to be attacked.
Right.
Ken, I kept you on here an hour, my friend. And I want to circle back to something we talked about a moment ago, and that is that whether you're using the doomsday clock that all those Nobel Prize winning laureates, PhDs, social scientists have come together, nuclear proliferation experts, and said, guys, we're 90 seconds to midnight. We are the closest we've ever been to destruction. So if you want to use that as your barometer for we're in a bad spot, or the political things going on in the world, and whatever you want to do. What, if anything, can people do right now to prepare for what may be coming here in the next year or so?
I think one of the first things they should do is become members of the American Warrior Society, right? So that way they can learn the skill.
Thank you, brother.
They can learn skill sets that would assist them if the world goes, to a full bar situation. But people should definitely start stocking up on supplies, right? Water, food, canned goods, have a generator, maybe definitely a radio that they can wind to charge up and arm themselves, man.
Yeah, cash on hand too, brother.
Cash too.
Yeah, man.
See, I got a bunch of bows on the wall back there. Yep. If I gotta hunt something, right? If things go to hell. But yeah, prepare, man. That's the best thing. Be prepared. Take classes. Learn how to do, field medicine work and all that other good stuff like that. Actually, I want to look into that. You mentioned it early on. Was it Mountain Man?
Mountain Man Medical, yeah.
Mountain Man Medical. Yeah, I need to look into that. That sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've had Brian McLaughlin on. Great people. They're one of our sponsors. We've got a co-branded trauma kit. The thing I like about Mountain Man Medical and why we agreed to partner with them, is they have the best products at the lowest price. You know, they buy in bulk, and then they came to us and like, hey, we want to do a co-branded trauma kit with you. My buddy, who's a former MARSOC operator, did some stuff with 3-letter agencies. He's now a practicing paramedic. We're like, hey, let's put together something that somebody can have in their truck to keep themselves safer. And again, we're talking about, you know, you go bow hunting and you get hurt, right? There's your trauma kit. You go and somebody tries to stab you, kid. I hope not. But there you go, right? But I mean, so I think that people just need to be prepared, man. And if somebody wanted to train with you, Ken, what's the best thing they can do?
They could reach out to me via actually the best thing to do would be to reach out to Lady of VTK on Instagram or TikTok, right? She's responsible for, you know, I tell people, I pick the cotton, she cracks the whip.
That's quite an analogy, brother.
You know, she makes all the appointments and does all the scheduling and stuff like that. So that would be the best way. And if you can,
and it was give me her tagline. It's at Lady LADY.
Yeah, Lady of VTK.
Of VTK. Okay.
Or is it 52? It's either Lady of VTK or Lady of 52 VTK.
And I think I have links to your social media and your website and everything in today's show notes. And if I don't, I will make sure that's in there, Ken.
All right, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, brother.
Greg says, will I be in Massachusetts this weekend with Mike? No, I was in New Jersey with Mike recently, training some folks up there near Newark. Just a really lovely place up there in Newark, New Jersey.
Interesting place.
Yeah. Used to be carjacking capital of the world. I'm not sure if it still is anymore.
Speaking of traveling, so you know me and the guys from the GHCA. Oh, I caught the interview you did with Fred Bauer. That was a solid interview, man. Yeah.
Are you coming down for the conference?
That is indeed the plan.
Okay. We need to get together. When we close out the show, I want to ask you about that, Ken.
All right.
All right, guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, be sure to check out Ken Shadow Goodman. Check out the links in today's show notes if you want an opportunity to train with him. He's got a wealth of knowledge to share with you that he acquired in real life situations, man. I always enjoy our conversations, Ken. Thanks for coming on again, brother.
Thank you for having me on again, brother. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Guys and gals out there, Warrior Nation, stay safe because the fight is coming. You ready?